My name is Filip Čech. I'm from Rijeka, Fiume. Been living here all my life. I work at the Department of Philosophy at the University of Rijeka. Well, I speak English, Italian and Croatian, so multilingual. So my wife, she's a Croat from Međimurje, which is a region in northern Croatia. We have 3 kids, 3 daughters. The oldest one is 11 years old, Sasha. Then Tonka, she is 4 years old, and Matilda, she is 10 months old. Okay, so the language we speak between us, at least the language I speak with my kids, is the Fiuman dialect, the Fiumano. So with Sasha, I speak fluently in Fiumano, and she replies to me in this dialect. The other daughter, Tonka, which is 4 years old, as I said before, also speaks to me in this language. Well, Matilda doesn't speak at all at the moment. And the 2 oldest daughters, they speak Croatian with their mother. And I speak with her, of course, in Croatian. But that's not all. We speak a lot in English because the oldest daughter, she got used to speak in English language, and therefore we simply started using it as a way of communication in almost everyday instances. Well, I wouldn't say that a specific language dominates in our household. It really depends on who's speaking to whom. So when I speak, as I said before, to my daughters, I speak in Italian, in Italian dialect. My wife, she speaks to them in Croatian, and we all use English. But it depends on the occasion. So if someone comes who speaks Croatian, we'll all speak Croatian to him or to her. Well, if someone comes who speaks Italian, then we'll all speak Italian to the person. Even my wife speaks Italian now, so not that well, and she's a bit ashamed of it. It's a shame that she's ashamed, but basically there is no language that dominates on other languages. Okay, we haven't actually thought much about this question. Simply, it occurred to us that we will use the language that we are accustomed to use in our everyday life. So she always spoke Croatian to the kids. I always spoke Italian to the kids. My mother always spoke Italian to the kids, and her mother always spoke Croatian to her, no kids, but grandchildren. And so there was no conscious decision. But when we were discussing a bit on some decisions that have to be made regarding kindergarten and elementary school, then we had the precise idea to make them go to Italian kindergartens and nursery schools and later on elementary schools. First of all, we think that speaking more languages is something precious. So giving them the opportunity seems like a good thing to do, and it opens various opportunities to them. And I'd say these are the main reasons, if there are any. Of course, there is the reason that we want to preserve our cultural heritage. So I think that the Fiuman dialect, which is not spoken by a lot of people, is slowly fading away. And so finding a way to keep it, to preserve it, it's a good thing. And therefore, one of the reasons was also to speak this dialect. with the kids. But as I said, this was not a very conscious decision. It was something that simply happened. And when you go to think about it, then you see the values behind this decision. Yes, if you were to decide again, we would decide the same way. We didn't regret the way that we decided, the way that we are talking at home. So there are no regrets regarding our decisions or simply our ways of behaving or talking between us. So I don't think that we would change anything. Well, when we started communicating, well, our kids spoke to us first of all in Italian and Croatian, and then slowly, as the older kid Sasha started to speak English language, then she started to communicate to us in English, and slowly the English language became, I'd say, almost dominant in the household. Well, not always, but there are a lot of occasions when, for example, kids play. When Sasha plays with Tonka, they communicate in English. Actually, it's a mixture. They use whatever term that comes to their mind first, but the dominant one, the grammar, is the English one, and so that's how the kids interact between them. Then we, of course, when we are watching something or discussing something with them, then we sometimes speak in English. But when we quarrel, when we argue about something, then usually I quarrel in Italian, my wife quarrels in Croatian, and Sasha usually replies in English. So it's a mixture, but it's so easy to do actually, because, for example, when you are at the table dining, and then if a person who's at the table speaks one language, then you just adopt to that person in a way that you reply to that person in the language that the person prefers. For example, my father comes to mind because he never spoke Italian, but he understood everything. But when the other uncle from Naples came for some festivities, then my father would switch to Italian and speak to him in Italian, this strange Italian that he used. But the discussion that was going on the table was such that someone would use Italian, someone would use the English language, someone would use Croatian, depending on who they were talking to, and everybody else would more or less understand what was going on. And so this similar pattern is also now occurring in our family. That simply that you speak whatever language that comes to your mind, and then you just use it in that moment. Well, so the problem with the nursery school is that they should have, and the kindergarten, that they should have teachers who are fluent in Italian, because the nursery school and the kindergarten in which we enrolled our kids are Italian kindergartens and nursery school, but not all teachers speak Italian. And that's a problem for the Italian kindergartens and the nursery schools. They simply do not have enough qualified teachers. Now Tonka is going to one kindergarten named Topolino, and both teachers are very fluent in Italian and in this dialect, Fiumano. So they speak very fluently to them, and we haven't had any, of course, problem with them or any issues regarding our decision to raise our kids bilingually. Sasha, when she went to the kindergarten, then some of the teachers didn't use English in a proper manner, and or didn't use at all. And especially when someone got sick, then the person who came to substitute them usually were Croatian-speaking teachers. And most of the kids in the kindergarten do not speak Italian, even if they should. And so there are no problems from the kindergarten towards us. Perhaps the local people who are fluent and would like to have kindergartens in Italian language are sometimes not too happy with the way that the kindergartens work, and the nursery schools also. No, I wouldn't say that we got discouraged at all. Encouraged a bit, tiny bit. Actually, I don't know. For example, I had a situation a few days ago where at the kindergarten the teacher said that she very much appreciates how Tonka speaks Fiumano, the dialect, because it's rather rare. And so this was the kind of encouragement that we got with Tonka, and also with Sasha before, because when she came to the elementary school, she used some words that haven't been used by that are not used. For example, she would use the word pomo for instead of mela, which is apple, and which is a way to use it in Fiumano, and also would use the term braghe, which is for trousers, and pantaloni or something similar. So that was like very strange for the teachers in the elementary school, but they encouraged her usage of Fiumano dialect. So that's not a problem at all. Sometimes they look as strange when we are paying at I don't know, at the supermarket, when you are at the with the clerk there, and then you start talking Italian, so they are a bit surprised. But I never had any problem whatsoever, at least not with Sasha or Tonka. So I'd say that the surroundings are rather positive towards our way of raising kids. Yeah, the only thing that happened, it was a funny thing. I took the kids to the game. We went to watch a football game. Rijeka played, I don't know who, Dinamo, something like that. And Sasha went with her friend Lola, and they spoke English all the time. And then some old guy started arguing that they should speak Croatian. So that's the only negative experience that we had. But they ignored him very successfully, so we're happy about it at the end. Well, the thing is that when you're bilingual, you're not how can I say, super confident regarding your knowledge of a particular language, and so sometimes you don't know how you should express yourself. Then you have, at least I have this doubts that sometimes I'm not speaking as I would like to speak with them, and that I use perhaps my vocabulary is not that wide as it should or could be, and sometimes I lack the word to express what I would like to say. So this is an issue that I sometimes have to confront. But at the end, I think that what they get from being bilingual is worth more than sometimes not being able to tell them exactly what is on your mind. So the final judgment regarding this is positive. I don't think that there is any specific support that it's needed to raise your kids bilingually, because, as I said, if you use it at home with your parents, for example, as I do, then speaking to your kids is something natural almost, and so no support is needed because it's a common thing to do. it's like a way of talking. What could be useful is that some institutions have the proper professionals who use the adequate language. In that case, I'm now talking about the kindergartens, elementary schools, and nurseries, which are not always well equipped with their personnel as being fluent in Italian language. But I do understand why it is as it is, because simply there are not enough people who speak this language, and so the persons who get the job there usually or sometimes simply do not speak the dialect or the Italian language, and therefore that's a minus. That's a problem with the institutions. But luckily, on the other hand, we have these institutions and we preserve them, so this is a great thing to have. So at the end, I would say that they do help maintain the language and the tradition that has been here for quite some time, and that's a good thing. Well, important it is because that's part of my identity. So my identity is that I'm from Rijeka, from Fiume. I always consider myself as being a Fiumano, and so I would like to them to feel the same way. Of course, I'm not only a Fiumano. I'm not only an Italian. I'm also not only a Croat. I'm a mixture of all these cultures. And that's something that I would like to have them as well. So to have an identity that's rather fluent in a sense, but again connected to the place of origin, and at the end this gives them some kind of richness, because they can see the various different aspects of these cultures, and so I think that's great. And then when you add to the mixture the English language, it's another culture and another, how can I say, perhaps prospect for them in the future, then there's only to be gained here. So I think it's been a positive one, and it is still a positive one. I don't think that my children would say that they are, I don't know, at loss here. I'd say that we all gain something from the way we are communicating. Sometimes it's difficult because we are, how can I say, we're not master of one language. We are all like a knower of all these languages, so that might seem like a drawback. But at the end, we are all of us are rather happy with the way we talk to each other. Well, it's hard to give an advice. I don't know if, well, the questionnaire has been based about a conscious decision to make to decide to be bilingual. That's not something that we did. So I don't know if someone can actually decide and be proper bilingual, if there is such a thing as a being properly bilingual. So that's also a big question. But for someone, if someone decides to raise their kids bilingually, the one important thing is to maintain always one way of communication with the kid. So, for example, if you are talking to your kid in Italian, then you should always talk to it in Italian, and not to have some changes or switches between languages. I know for some of my friends who belong to this Italian community, they, for one reason or the other, they avoided talking to the kids in Italian, and then at the end the kids haven't learned the dialect or the language, or at least if they learned it, they learned it in a rudimentary manner. So they're at loss there, so the advice is just stick to it. If If you plan to speak to the kid in whatever language you decide to, then just keep going, and do not switch it when you feel like you're missing, or perhaps change something. Try to find a way to express yourself. But yes, just take the language that you decided to use.